Hello and happy Wednesday. Today on the Busy Bride podcast, we have a bonus episode for you. I am chatting with none other than my dad and brother about financial planning for newly married couples, because once you get married and once you start planning for your future as a unit together for the rest of your lives, there's a couple more things you need to consider. And my dad and my brother talk all about that and all the things to consider and how to plan for all of those things in this episode. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Busy Bride podcast. I'm your host, Gabriella Marie, and I created this podcast to help you research vendors and learn valuable advice as you plan the most special and true to you wedding day of your dreams. Let's get started. Hello, George and Dylan. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hello, Gabriella. So happy that you have us. Glad to be here.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate it.
Yes, brother. So, if you can't tell already, this is a different kind of episode. It's a bonus episode for the month of July. I'm talking to my dad and my brother about financial planning for newly married couples because they are both in the financial planning business and they're both freaking amazing and incredibly knowledgeable about what they do. So, Dad and Dylan, why don't you give me a little backstory about how and why you got into financial planning?
Sure. I'll start. So quite obviously, I'm a second generation financial advisor. I started my career on Capitol Hill, working in politics, writing tax policy for a member of Congress. But, I always grew up around my dad, and I learned from a young age just how impactful what he did, how impactful it was on the life of the people he was working with. And I've seen him change people's lives in more ways than one. And honestly, I just felt a calling to do the same. So that's why I'm here.
Amazing.
So, I got involved in the financial planning business back in 1996. And, I always wanted to be in a career where I was able to just control my schedule and not worry about having anyone tell me what to do and not have a ceiling on my income. And the financial planning arena was that place. I wanted to be a stockbroker. I wanted to be a money guy. And doing comprehensive financial planning just kind of happened to me because back when I was 35, I lost my best friend from leukemia. And because of him not having his financial plan in order, his family's life was pretty much turned upside down, and pretty much destroyed. And it was that incident, that terrible incident, that caused me to be a little bit more focused on being a comprehensive financial planner, helping families reach their goals and their objectives, and making sure that situations like that happened, that kind of changed his life and obviously changed my life, never happen again to anyone that I work with.
Absolutely. And I know that had a huge impact on you. So then why don't you talk more about what exactly is financial planning? Because I feel like a lot of people hear that and they think, oh, well, I'm not rich enough to do financial planning. Why would I even consider that? So talk more about what financial planning actually is.
That's a really good question. And I hear a lot of people say that as well. But, there's a quote by a guy named Zig Ziglar. If you ever heard of Zig Ziglar, he said, money isn't everything, but it ranks right up there with oxygen, right? And why would he say that? Because you need oxygen, and you can't live without money. Now, money is not everything. That's the truth. But what we try to help people do is build their financial house so that the life that they have together in that house is as good as it can possibly be, and that the goals and objectives they have as a couple, as a family in the future when they have children, is on track. And, that's kind of what we do. It's kind of like when an airplane takes off, and if an airplane leaves the Philly airport and is going to San Francisco, and, wind affects everything. And if it's off just like 1 or 2 degrees, it may land up in Montana, but you have to have course corrections constantly. That's what a pilot is for. So we're kind of like the pilot in their financial plane, right? And we use the analogy of a house a lot because it's easier for everyone to understand a house, where every house has a foundation, right? And the foundation is the most important part of the house because there's a book out there about building that gives an analogy about building your house on the sand or building your house on the stone. Gab, you know what that book is, right?
It is the Bible.
It is the Bible. So words in the Bible are pretty good. But Dylan, one of the things that people need to understand when we're talking about their financial house is the foundation, and help them understand what that foundation is.
Sure. So the foundation is your first layer. It's your protection layer, your emergency layer, just in case something bad would happen to you. Your will, your living will, your insurance. What if something were to happen to you or your spouse? And an emergency fund, money in the bank, down the street, in case your roof caves in February. Some important steps before you build up to, making money, to earning interest on money and building it. You have to have your layer of protection just in case.
And that's exactly right, Dylan. And one of the things that people don't like to talk about, that's part of that financial base. And we talked about the will and insurance. The will is, the first three words of a will are "when I die," and nobody likes to talk about that. But that's an important piece of the puzzle because one of the things when we're sitting down with a family, I will ask the spouse. I would ask her. I said, if your husband died last week, how much money would come into the household, and would you be able to have the same lifestyle that you have today? If that's not important to them, then they don't need life insurance. But if that is important to them, that's one of the ways that you make sure that if something happens, accidents happen, and it's unfortunate, whether it's an accident or an illness, preparing for that. And nobody likes to do that, but it's all about wanting to make sure that your family's taken care of. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. And it's not something that people normally think about because it's not something pleasant to think about. You don't want to
Sure.
think about, the end, or catastrophes, disasters happening. But sometimes they do happen and nobody makes it out of this world alive. So it is important to think about. If somebody's listening to this, they're like, okay, I just heard about an emergency savings fund. I just heard about life insurance. I just heard about all these different things and I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. If there's somebody out there who hasn't really thought about this yet or hasn't talked to their partner about it yet, what's a good starting point for somebody or for a couple who's about to get married or who just got married?
Well, I could start. I think just having conversations about it. When we have conversations with an individual who's wants to talk about insurance, wants to talk about planning in any aspect, we always who do we always want in the meeting, Dad? Not just them, but
Everyone
involved. I mean, we want the conversation to be free flowing, very, very transparent. And that's the best way to do it. Just having those conversations.
Dylan, you had a quote that you brought to my attention yesterday that I really thought was very poignant and kind of fits exactly to, what we're talking about here on Gabriella's podcast. Can you share that?
Sure, I can. I actually do like this quote, and I think it's really pertinent for today. Mindsets change when plans for me become plans for we after your wedding. Simply put.
Because everybody looks out for themselves. You have to, right? But when you get married, you should leave your mother and father, and the two should become one. We read that somewhere. And what's that book, Gab, that we read about that?
It's the Bible.
It is the Bible. So that's a good book. So now you're together, and there's someone else that you're pledging your allegiance to, and your love and your caring and your concern for forever. And forever's a long time till death do us part, right? So, what do you do when you come together with someone and say, I want to spend the rest of my life with you? Let's get married and let's get Gabriella to be our photographer because I've seen her pictures and she's amazing. So when you make that commitment to do that and then you become together as one, well, people talk about, well, usually you have an apartment. Well, we'd like to buy a house. We'd like to move into the suburbs. We'd like to have children. We'd like to take care of their education. We'd like to take care of retirement. How do you do all that? How do you take the steps to plan for all those things? Because when you initially get married, it's the two of you, you've become one, and then oftentimes, the family is next. And that just adds more layers to what you need for a financial plan. And kind of like those course corrections I talked about on the airplane, meeting with a financial planner. Dylan, when we have clients, do we meet with them once and then see them every 10 years?
Absolutely not. It's a consistent thing, especially in the beginning. We get our footing down and we work through every step of the process together, and we just don't leave anything off the table. I've actually heard it described as what we do is kind of sort of like a financial colonoscopy. We want everything. We want to get everything, right? We want to know everything so we can help you plan for everything.
It makes sense that before you get married, you're kind of flying solo, making sure that your own financial health is okay. But when you get married to somebody, you love that person, obviously, so incredibly much. And so wanting to make sure that they're taken care of and that your life together is taken care of, I think that is a really big incentive for wanting to think more about your financial future and how to plan so that the person you love the most is taken care of.
And if you work at a job and you're making $100,000 a year, and your spouse has a job and they're making $75,000 a year, you live together and purchase things and live in a neighborhood that's conducive to that $175,000 collective income. Okay, and if one spouse dies, let's say the spouse that's making $100,000 is gone, what is the plan to make sure that the income that spouse provided is going to continue? In most cases, there's no way it doesn't continue. You need to be proactive to make sure that you have plans in place in case that happens, that you can have your spouse who you love can have that same lifestyle. And it becomes even more important. I don't want to use the word complicated, but we can do that when you have children, because not only do you want to make sure that your wife and your spouse or your husband lives the same kind of lifestyle that you've grown together, that you've built together, that you enjoy together, but you want to make sure your kids have the same thing too. Sometimes parents really love their kids and they want to take care of them. So they do what they need to do from a planning perspective to make sure that they're taken care of.
Amazing. So is there like a frequently asked question that you get from couples, especially newly married couples, about financial planning that you can give the answer to? Because I'm sure you get lots and lots and lots of questions.
Well, one of the questions we get initially is, where should I invest my money? Which stock should I buy? And it goes back to that financial house again. Let's make sure that your bases are covered, that you have a will, that you have an emergency fund with money down the street. Like Dylan said, if your roof caves in February, you got money to take care of it. Let's make sure you have life insurance to take care of your wife and your family in case something happens, maybe, and also have some disability insurance in case you get disabled. The most valuable asset that you have, that people have, is not their 401k. It's not their home. It's their ability to earn an income. And if something happens and that ability to earn an income is compromised because you get injured or you become disabled or you have an illness that allows you not to work in the same capacity, Have you taken steps to take care of that? And then the next step would be, okay, what about retirement? And that's kind of, Dylan, I think one of the questions, right, that people ask a lot.
Yeah, I get a lot of people that tell me, oh, so I ask them about their future, about retirement, and they say, oh, well, I want to be financially free by age 50 or age 55, or I want this. And I say, well, how are you planning to do that? And they say, I don't know. And that's kind of where we come in.
And to drill down a little bit and piggyback on what Dylan said, if they want to be financial free, we need to define that. Okay. What does financial free mean? Just like everybody has a definition of rich. Okay. My mom, who's 85, thinks that if you make, $60,000 a year, you're rich. I don't think that, but everybody has their different definition of that. And what does financial freedom mean? Well, when do you want to retire? Some people want to retire at 55, some at 65, some at 70. Okay, let's figure that out. Okay. And if you do retire, what kind of income do you want to have in retirement? How much money per month do you need to have the lifestyle that you want to have? Okay. Need and want, different words, right? But we try to help them get what they want. So if they want to have, $175,000 of income guaranteed for the rest of their life once they retire at 65, how do you get there? How much money do you have to invest today on a monthly basis? What kind of investments do you need to have those dollars in? Aggressive, moderate, conservative? Where do you put that money? So that's where it gets a little bit more detailed in what we do, but everything's tailored to everyone's individual plan. I'm going to give a quick example, like of education. When we talk about insurance, and I'm going to use myself as an example. I bought a bunch of life insurance when I got married, and when my daughter Gabriella was born, we bought some more. And when my son Dylan was born, we bought some more, because my life insurance plan was, I wanted to make sure that if I died, there was enough money to take care of the mortgage. That's number one. Number two, I wanted to have enough money in my life insurance plan to make sure that my kids had the ability to go wherever they wanted to go in school, because I wasn't here to earn the money to pay for that. And number three, we touched on it earlier, I wanted to make sure that I had an income replacement for my wife. I wanted to make sure that she had an income stream coming in, because although my wife is brilliant, way smarter than me, she doesn't have the ability to earn the type of income that I do. So that was my life insurance plan. And it was very important for me to make sure that I had those bases covered. And, and there are many different types of life insurance. We're not going to get into that now, but there are some that are additional. You can use it as an additional investment vehicle. So now I'm at a point in my life where my mortgage is paid, my kids are graduating from college, and my wife, because I've been working for a while and putting money away, she does have that income. So I don't need all that life insurance now, but I built that plan in a way that that life insurance has value. Dylan, what's the word of life insurance? What's that stuff in life insurance? What do you call it?
It's your cash value in the life insurance policy.
Cash value.
And of course, you could borrow against that cash value. And how much tax do you pay on the money you borrow from your cash value life insurance policy?
One of my favorite words when it comes to taxes, zero. So it is on top of an ability to take care of your family, the certain types of life insurance out there that if you die, your family wins because you have money to take care of them. And if you don't die, you win because that plan has a lot of cash value that you can access and use, and you can take it out tax-free. So that's part of the planning that we talk about when we talk to people when they first get married and have to think about someone else, the me becoming a we.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you guys on a very basic level is that it is very important to do financial planning, to think about your financial future, especially after getting married, because sometimes things don't go according to plan, disasters happen, catastrophes happen, but so a lot of times things do go according to plan, and then you got to think about retirement. So regardless of what happens in your life, you need to think ahead whether it be good things or bad things, because thinking ahead, planning ahead will help both of those situations like
The five
astronomically.
P's. The 5 P's. Do you know what the
Go
five
for it.
P's? You know what the five
Let's
P's
tell
are.
the listeners what the 5 P's are.
Prior preparation prevents poor performance in all aspects of life, including your financial plan.
And then to quote, I know this is not the original person who quoted it, but in a more recent Taylor Swift song, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
That's very true. And,
Gotta throw Taylor Swift in there.
protect against loss before you invest for gain. And when you do invest for gain, I like to call it helping couples and families have multiple buckets of money. The emergency fund that you have down the street that Dylan talked about, that's a bucket of money. The life insurance plan you have, that's a bucket of money. The 401k plan you have at work, that's a bucket of money. The investment plan that you have that you can grab and get money from at any time. 401ks, IRAs, you cannot touch that till you're 59 and a half. So let's provide another bucket of money that you can access whenever you need it. And you don't have to wait till 59 and a half. Now you get older, you get a little bit more stable, you're starting to make more money, you have less debt. Ooh, let's buy some real estate. Let's buy a property and do a verbo or get some renters and provide ourselves with MSI, which is, Gab, do you know what MSI means?
MSI has been drilled into me by my father for all of the listeners. It is called multiple streams of income. It just means, like my dad was saying about all the different buckets of money, you don't want all your money in one bucket, because what if that bucket gets knocked over? That wouldn't be good. So if you have multiple buckets of money, in case one, maybe two buckets get knocked over, you still have the other buckets to pull from. So it's kind of like safety nets, just having multiple streams of income.
And, it really all depends on, what are your goals and what are the objectives when you get married? What do you want? Okay. And what we try to help people do is become disciplined. Okay. Disciplined with their income. When you get your paycheck, what do you do with it? Everybody has a different philosophy. I take 10% of whatever I get. Well, the first thing that I do is I take 40% and I put it away because I got to pay the government that in taxes. Whatever. We're not going to get into that conversation. Then I take 10% and I put it into a giving account. And then I take 10% and I put it towards my retirement. Then I take 10% and I put it towards our family budget. Then I take another 10% and I put it towards an investment, the one that I can get at any time. So we try to help people become disciplined with their dollars and having plans in place that they fund on a monthly basis, because that's how we determine how much money you're going to have at retirement. I want to retire at 60. I want $2.5 million. Well, we put the plan together to help them understand exactly how to do that and how much money you need to do that.
Yes. And then you're talking about all these big percentage numbers that you're putting away. What if somebody is looking at their paycheck and they're like, I can probably only put like 3% of this towards my retirement right now? Like, is it even worth it to do that?
Dylan, you want to answer that question?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And here's one of the things. So I used to give presentations for companies and employees about their 401k, and they would ask me the same question. I mean, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I just barely have enough money. Put away 1%, okay? Nobody misses 1%, okay? And then next year, put away another percent. Now you're putting away 2. And then year 3, you put another percent in, and after 10 years, you're putting your 10%. And when you see that money grow, it's exciting. The time value of money, the compounding of money, watching it grow, it's exciting. And when you are a little bit more disciplined, and instead of spending your additional extra dollars on, let's call them frivolous things, everybody wants to have fun, but what's more important to you? How important is having that lifestyle that you want, being able to, have multiple buckets of money and retire at the age and with the amount of income that you want? How important is that to you? Then you make the sacrifices and do what you need to do first, and then use the extra money that you have for play and to do other things. You've heard the terminology, pay yourself
First.
Pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. Very, very
And I
important.
think, and it is really cool when you do start to see that money grow and the results of those little percentages of saving. We just live in a culture right now of instant gratification and getting things immediately. Amazon delivers literally same day in Philadelphia because there's Amazon warehouses here. So it's hard to think like, okay, well, this little percentage doesn't do anything right now. But if you wait 5 years, you'll start to really see that grow. And I think we need to like manually remind ourselves like it will come. It's not an instant thing, but life keeps moving, the world keeps turning. So it is important to do those little percentages now because down the road, it'll make all the difference.
Gab, that's a great point. You should join our team. But another way to look at it is, if you want to do something, you want to have a certain amount of money at retirement, and you don't start now, and you wait 5 years. Well, the amount of money that you have to put in to achieve your goal, if you wait 5 years or 10 years, it's dramatic. The earlier you start, the better. And as a family unit, as a husband and wife, a newly married couple, starting your financial planning early gets you on the right track, gets you disciplined. We find out what those goals and objectives are, and we help try to maximize them as much as possible.
Yeah, and for all the people who are not math people like myself, I am not a math girly. It does not make sense to me. But I remember those exponential curve graphs. It's not the one that's like diagonal straight up. It like starts a little bit and then all of a sudden it just shoots like almost straight up in the air. That's, I think, what saving for retirement is, right? So it makes the most sense to start early, even if it's a little bit, because the earlier you start, the earlier the straight up in the air will come.
Yeah. Yeah. An
100%.
interesting way to describe it, nonetheless, but it's correct.
Hey, that's how my brain works. Math just doesn't compute, so I need visuals I am a photographer, so I am in the visual arts. So
And just to kind of add on to that real quick, having these conversations with your spouse, after you get married, it's never easy. It can be difficult, right? However, the longer you wait to have that conversation, the more difficult it will get. So
and I think it helps to frame it as like we're doing this for us, like I'm bringing up this conversation because I care about us and I care about you, and it's not any sort of like shaming in a conversation because everybody has different backgrounds when it comes to money. There's different sorts of trauma, there's different sorts of like learning levels. Everybody has different mindsets around it. So the sooner you can just approach the topic and be like, hey, we should probably talk about this since we're getting married or since we're married now and like we're one unit. We should probably make sure that we're set as a unit for the rest of our lives.
And helping people be more financially independent is the things that we try to do. Do you want to just have enough money to go on vacation every year to go to the beach for 3 days? Or do you want to have enough money so that every year you can go to Italy or to Greece or to Spain or to Israel, right? What are your goals and objectives? And, we help people understand how to do that. And one of the quotes that I borrowed from, I don't know who I borrowed it from, but if you do the right things enough times for enough people, you never have to worry about money. But more importantly, for that money conversation, if you do the things that you don't want to do, work the extra hour, make the extra phone call, take an extra shift. If you do the things you don't want to do when you don't want to do them, ultimately, Dylan, what will happen?
You will be able to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it.
And wherever you want to do it.
That is financial freedom. Okay. If you can get to the point where you say, you know what? I had a meeting cancel on Friday. Let's go to Cabo San Lucas for the weekend and not have to worry about money. To be in a position where you can do that with your spouse, and to be able to go places and enjoy things and grow and experience things together, having the financial resources available to do that makes it a lot easier. And that's one of the things that we try to help couples understand.
Amazing. I think we had a great conversation here. And it's just important to start the conversation with your partner, with your spouse, if you're already married. And then there's different things to think about. There's, disasters, catastrophes, bad things you don't want to think about, but you have to. What happens then? And then the good things. You make it to retirement together. Yay. How do you want to spend it? So lots of great conversations. I have one more question. Dylan, I can't ask you this because you're not married, but Dad, you are married. So I asked this question to everybody on the podcast. What is your biggest wedding or marriage tip for couples who are either about to get married or who are newly married?
Well, that's a good question. I would say, since I've been married for now 30 years, find someone that you're in love with, that you want to do whatever you can to make their lives as good as it can possibly be, and strive every day to achieve that goal.
Love that answer. Amazing. Okay, so people listening to this and they're like, this kind of sounds like something I want to do, and these guys sound like they're not too bad. Where can people find you?
Sure. So the best way to get in contact with us is going to be our emails, and I'm sure you can link our phone numbers too. Give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, and if you want to see a little bit more about what we do, we can include our LinkedIn's in the bio, probably.
Yeah, we can link
on LinkedIn. Yeah,
we can link all that in the show notes so everybody can have access to it. So, thanks for being on the show. It was lovely chatting with you guys.
I'm excited that I was on the Busy Bride podcast. I feel very, very lucky and very blessed. Thank you.
I've been an avid fan of the Busy Bride podcast for a while, and this is my first appearance, and I hope it's not my last. I appreciate it.
Amazing. I'm flattered. Woo! That was a great conversation. I myself am a bit of a money nerd, thanks to my dad, as you can see. He definitely instilled into me and my brother from early on the importance of planning for the future, both financially and in other ways as well. So it was really cool for full circle moment to talk to them about ways that newly married couples can also plan for their financial future. And I hope you learned something. I hope you feel more confident now, and I hope you feel encouraged and ready to start planning if you haven't already, because there's no better time to start than the present. And if you're starting now, you're not behind. It's okay. You just need to start now, and that's totally great. So if you love this episode, I would love if you would share it with anybody else who you think may benefit from it. Any of your friends who are about to get married or who are newly married, I hope this could benefit them as well. So please share it with them. That would mean the world to me. And thank you so much for listening. Now go hug your person, and I will see you next Wednesday.